Good evening, my name is Ryan. I'm a certified technician assigned to your vehicle today. Today the vehicle is in for an issue with the power steering. The vehicle had lost power steering after someone had removed the transmission to replace the clutch assembly. So what I found, the vehicle has electronic power steering. So what happens, in order to remove the clutch, the transmission comes out. In order to remove the transmission, the subframe would come out with the steering rack attached to it. So I had removed quite a few pieces here in order to visually inspect the harness going from the fuse panel down to the power steering control module, or steering rack as you call it. So what I found was that the harness appears to be okay. When I tested the fuse that actually supplies power to the control module and steering rack, the fuses here are along this this plate. So what it is the battery supplies power into this fuse panel, and then each one of these terminals next to it has their own fuse or fusible link built in. So the fuse appears to be open because they all test to be at 0, which a good fuse would test 0 ohms of resistance, and this one tests outside of the limits of the meter, which essentially means that it is an open fuse, otherwise a blown fuse. So we need to replace this panel across the front here, and it would have to take the fuse panel out of the box and then replace this piece here, this strip fuse, this multi-fuse, in order to restore the proper power to the electronic steering rack. And then we would need to reevaluate the car and see where it goes from there. I think that's the first step. We can't really diagnose until we have power to the control module itself and the rack. So going over the rest of the car, quite a few pieces that are missing. I noticed before removing the battery, as I have removed the battery and the tray, that the hold down that holds the battery in place is actually missing completely. There's a bolt or a nut that would go onto this threaded stud here, down here, if you can see where my hand is. This threaded stud here actually holds the linkage onto the transmission. So you have two bolts here that secure it, and then there's also a nut that secures it on the side in order to hold it in place. So that's missing completely as well. If you look down here, you can see quite a bit of axle grease because this left front axle actually has an issue seating against the drive flange on the transmission. I'm going to show you that in just a second. A few other pieces underneath as well missing. The undershield, the splash shield that goes across the bottom of the car is missing completely. And then, as I said, the left front axle has an issue seating against the drive flange. So it appears that the bolts might have been cross-threaded on their way in, because we have two bolts here that are not tight against the flange. As you can see, they're sticking out. They're not loose. So what I would recommend is removing the drive axle, repacking the boot with grease, fresh grease. As you can see, there's quite a bit of grease being thrown and slung around, so we don't really know the integrity or the amount of grease that's left in it. And then repairing the drive flange, repairing the threads in the drive flange at the transmission if needed. So kind of wraps up the video there. Any questions or concerns, just feel free to contact the service advisor. Otherwise, thank you for choosing North Penn as your service provider. Have a great night.